County principals wanted to make a difference during the pandemic. They started Create and Educate LLC to help educators and parents during some tough times. They're focusing on literacy and leadership. CN2's R.E.A.L.L. Jackson has more on how they're helping the community.
Create and Educate, we are a consulting firm that works with educators as well as entrepreneurs. So with the side where we're working with educators, we offer professional development on literacy as well as implicit bias. We work with leaders and leadership teams to help improve schools.
They've been surviving pandemic education by offering tips for school leaders, teachers, and parents.
We really want to see kids through the trajectory, graduating from high school, ready to go to college or to start a career or to go into the military.
Create and Educate has multiple community partners in the area that read books to children weekly, discuss literature, and express their support for the education system. Recently, the owners were featured for Amazon's #1 best-selling book entitled Women Who Lead in Education.
And so we are super, super excited because we're amongst a family of women leaders who are absolutely extraordinary. So it's an honor to have been asked to participate. And then even more of an honor now that the book has gone on sale and it became a #1 bestseller. So you don't have to be a school leader to have leadership qualities.
Collectively, both Tammy Taylor, principal of Great Falls Elementary, and Dr. Sheka Houston, principal of Chester Middle School, have 40 years of service in education. They have learned the need in their community, and they plan to
serve all children in all communities. And one of the things that we enlighten people about in our professional development with literacy is that sometimes it's hard for children to connect to text because they don't see themselves in text. Providing that culturally relevant literature for students, and that's not just African American students, that's all students. Every student at every school should be able to see themselves in a book, in a text, to be able to connect with it.
Surviving pandemic education together in Chester, R.E.A.L.L. Jackson, CN2 News.
Again, their goal is to help connect educators, parents, community members, and authors each week to help better navigate the pandemic. To learn more about Create and Educate LLC, simply follow them on Facebook or at their website.
Great Saturday, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, Tammy.
Good morning, Sheka, and good morning, everybody. Welcome. Happy Saturday.
Yes, happy Saturday, and welcome to the R.E.A.L. Academy. If this is your first time joining us, our acronym R.E.A.L. stands for Respect, Excellence, Accountability, Literacy, and Leadership. And this is the framework that Tammy and I developed as we were going through school improvement for our schools, and we were able to improve our schools to a report card grade levels for mine at the middle level in 1 year and 3 for hers at the elementary level in 1 year. But as you heard from the intro that we were able to record with one of my former students that I'm very proud of, Miss R.E.A.L. Jackson, who at the time was working with CN2 News, we talked about how it was difficult for children possibly to connect to text when they can't see themselves in text. So this morning we are going to be talking about an organization that we've started, the Knowledge Academy. Good morning, Principal Kafele, and we definitely enjoyed seeing him last night at the event that we went to, sponsored by Richland 2 School District.
Yes, it wasn't enough fire emojis for that, Principal Kafele. You brought it, and we are so proud.
He did. It was excellent. But the Knowledge Academy is something that we've started because we know that it's not just difficult for children to connect to text when they don't see themselves in text, but it's difficult for children to connect to school when they don't see themselves in the curriculum, when they are not feeling like they belong to the school because there's no intentionality behind what are we doing to make sure that our students are involved from every sector of every culture. So then there's a disconnect or this perceived achievement gap that we have when we're talking about Black and brown children many times. And we know that there was a 1966 Coleman report where a gentleman talked about how he thought that African Americans didn't have the same capabilities as their white counterparts to be able to learn. And so people like Mr. Ron Edmonds, who has done phenomenal work with school improvement research and practices and strategies, made it his business to find high performing, high poverty, high minority, or high African American groups schools that were performing well, and he did. So that disputed that whole thing. So there are specific things that needs to be in place to engage children who are African American and who are brown. It can't just be the traditional things that have been in place. It's not going to reach all students. So the Knowledge Academy is something that we feel like will definitely do that. It's a culturally relevant, social and emotional program that uses the Africana womanism paradigm and the Africana man paradigm by Dr. Hudson Weems. And we teach children that paradigm in order to learn about themselves and also learn how to interact with their community as well as with one another. One complaint that I'm frequently hearing as I go around to schools from teachers is that, the children in the classroom, they have this toxic relationship. They just they hate each other, but they love each other. They're say really mean, inappropriate things to one another. And it's almost as if that has been accepted as the norm. We have to teach our children how to interact with one another, what's acceptable and what is not acceptable, and we have to model it as well. And then we hear from schools a lot that we just can't get our African American population engaged, or we can't get our Hispanic population engaged. And for some people who take their report cards, and we have that syndrome that we talk about with teachers sometimes being checkbox teachers. Oh, I taught the standard, I put it out there, it's up to them to get it. Some people have that same perception with schools. Oh, my report card's excellent, we're good. If there's a subgroup that's not performing, at least our report card is good, it's up there, we're performing, and then that they're done. But we're not done. We have to make sure all of our students are engaged.
Most definitely. And Sheka is going to kind of show what our thoughts are about how we're going to move forward with what we're offering, because it also became very real to us when we were participating in a new anthology on reactions to the tragedy that happened with Breonna Taylor. And we know that tragedies like that are happening on both sides of the coin. We see that happening to too many females by far, and we see those kinds of incidents occurring certainly among our young men of color too often as well. But what we saw as an urgency from both aspects was when we were looking and trying to conduct some research, the adultification of young girls has created this entirely new disconnect from schools for our girls that hasn't necessarily been there heretofore. And we're talking about all the way down to as low as kindergarten. And so we know like there is a sense of urgency to make sure that we are, and when I say we are collective, but Sheka and I committed to doing this work because we want to see that trajectory changes. Like, these girls need to know who they are. And when you greet us as queens this morning, we appreciate that. We recognize that we walk in that. We want to make sure that our queens, our princesses now, recognize that you are destined to be queen. So we need you to understand who you are. We need you to understand and appreciate the fact that you have this rich legacy, a heritage that nobody's telling you about, because Sheka mentioned this earlier, that nobody's talking about the things that we used to talk about that just make us morally good people. Like, we are straying away from those things, and we're being fed by the content that kids are being exposed to on their games or on YouTube or TikTok or whatever it is that has captured their attention. We have to be diligent, and we also have to be intentional. That was something that came up, like, I don't know how many times last night in Principal Kafele's message. The intentionality has to be there. And that isn't just for our Black girls, that's for our Black boys as well. We're offering that in the Knowledge Academy because we believe that it has to start somewhere. And for us, we've decided it can start with us.
Definitely. Thank you, Tammy. And Principal Kafele did have a great example of how he engaged his Hispanic students and was more intentional about learning their language, going to their games, and just making sure that there was a focus on those students, even though the rest of the school was performing. That was a group that wasn't at that time, and he made sure that those students did come up and they started performing. So this is our website. If you visit our website, you can see that we have the Knowledge Academy for girls as well as boys. Let me scroll down. So this just gives you an overview about the mission, what it's about, the focus, and how we're using our resiliency framework to help the students learn the paradigm. So if you're interested in a membership or starting a chapter at your school or your organization, there is a form on our website that you can fill out. And this will be ready to be launched at the start of the new school year. Right now, we are gauging interest and want to see, how many people would be interested in having this. And we do know that there are some challenges, and this is in no way a way to say that our history and the things that should be included in the regular curriculum shouldn't be there. It should definitely be there. But until we get there, we have to do something. So we feel like that this will be something that can help our children, help adults as well, because we have learned so much just from going through the information ourselves, that we have a rich history, a rich culture, and that we want the next generations to be equipped with that in order for them to realize who they are and come into themselves in order to be the best versions of themselves that they could possibly be.
And one last just thing for us to think about when we are promoting what we're doing, we want to just put this into context, because this is coming during a time when you have people publicly speaking out saying, we don't want to have in textbooks, we don't want to have in courses, we don't want to address certain things because, and we can't say what the because is. I have my suspicions for what that all stems from. However, what we can't do is say, oh, well, this is the day and time that we're living in. People aren't going to accept that this is a part of the history and the culture of certain people. We can't just let that be the way that we react to the reactions of others. what we've decided is, kids have to know we're putting this into perspective, because if nobody else wants to, we want to save and preserve the Africana family, because that is what's going to matter in the very end. The legacy are the children that we have. Those legacies that we are going to leave as a community lie in the hands of our children, and we can't let them inherit something that they don't even know what they have, or they won't be able to hold on to it.
Exactly. So what we have been engulfed in over the past few weeks, if you've been logging in with us, and we've been talking about the Africana womanist framework and the Africana man framework that Dr. Hudson Weems developed. We are kind of giving you just an overview and a preview of what this curriculum will look like. And what we're talking about and have been talking about over the past few weeks is more of an adult context, but we as educators, of course, will be putting this in a way that is appropriate for children, and it'll be appropriate for the perspective grade spans. There's certain things you would talk about with elementary children that or wouldn't talk about with elementary children that you would or could with middle and high school students. So the overview that we're giving you is in its form from Dr. Hudson Weems, her teaching, and we will be using this to guide what we're developing for children. So,
Absolutely. And see, Shika's point is, I hope, well taken by those of you who are who have been with us over this journey over the last few weeks, because what we're going to do, and these concepts are relational, so they are relevant to any relationship. Now, we're talking about this from a male-female compatibility aspect, because that's one of the 18 characteristics. But as this would be presented in our curriculum, the content would be specific to the relationships that children have with one another, with their parents, with their siblings, because being a faithful person isn't just in the sense of fidelity in your marriage. This is being faithful to the relationship that you're in, whether that's with your significant other, as we've been talking about, or whether that's with your sister, because you, if nobody else, better have your sister's back, because guess what? You guys are faithful to one another. And that faithfulness is a part of who we are as sisters, and not just being genuine in that sisterhood, but in that relational capacity as sisters who are going to be there for each other regardless.
Exactly, Tammy. Thank you for bringing that up. And we are going to get into where we left off last week with male and female compatibility. And we left off at mutual respect and different disrespect. So do you want to kind of give like the background for
Sure.
this one?
So, or were you going to go through it? You can do it if you wanted to.
Oh, okay. So this is just, it's characteristic 11, and Dr. Hudson Weems is trying to make sure that people understand that there are positive and negative tenets for a relationship. So we left off on mutual respect and disrespect, and the next one, number 7, is support and neglect.
Yeah, and when you're looking at those, and we'll just go back to the respect, mutual respect and disrespect in a relationship, and we've been talking about how you can kind of when you go through this, and if you ever read the book, and again, it's in that chapter in the book that just came out. That's a part of the work that I did to contribute to that particular Africana womanism book. But when you look at that, being respectful is something that you expect to see. You do not, when you're looking at a relationship, you don't often see the husband and wife, male, female, being disrespectful to one another. Now, when that does happen, and one of the things that you have to understand is like, there is a level of respect that just comes with being the queen of his life and the king of her life. Like there's only so much that can happen, or that I'm going to allow to happen. Like I'm not going to allow my husband to be disrespected in my presence, because that is the level of respect that I have for him, and vice versa. That's just the building block of making sure that you have that strong foundational respect that is a key component of almost every relationship. And you know that through our R.E.A.L. acronym, that respect is the basis for almost every other aspect of what we do. And then the next one that Sheka mentioned was support and neglect. And that just, again, shows up in, are we supporting one another? Like, do you see that whatever it is I set my mind to do, or whatever it is that I need from you, or I just need somebody right now to hear what I'm saying because I'm frustrated and I'm aggravated, but I got you. I support you. I'm listening. Hey, let's go grab a milkshake because this is going to get better. Or am I just ignoring the fact that you're coming home frustrated every day and you're aggravated and annoyed, but I'm just kind of not paying attention to that. So that creates other issues or sets these barriers in place that keep us from being able to interact in a manner that's healthy with one another.
And just to add to that, and related to schools as well, support really is about learning one another's love language. And on the 14th of March, my husband and I will have been married for 25 years. So before we had our children, my husband would buy me something for Easter because that was something I was used to getting, Easter gifts. And my love language is gifts. So he would make sure he would always still get me something for Easter, just because I'm a ridiculous person. But he knows that gifts are my love language, so he makes sure I had something whenever I felt like I needed something. But knowing your students' love languages, knowing your teacher's love language, all of that's important because you may feel like you're supporting people in a certain way, but if that ain't how I receive support, then it doesn't mean anything. So you have to know what those things are in order to be able to provide it. Otherwise, you still falling in that neglect category.
Absolutely. And I just want to make sure we address that whole issue of yes, you have to be able to pay attention to what we need as individuals, because otherwise you're not going to be able to understand. Now, I do want to just go back to Miss Dot says that you have to respect yourself, and that is bottom line. Respect is the key, is foundational to everything. So we are definitely not promoting tolerating disrespect, because what we're wanting to just say and be real about is you do have relationships that are built on a very respectful, mutually respectful foundation. But there are, unfortunately, relationships where that respect is one-sided. Now, we're certainly going to be completely honest, because what Dr. Hudson Weems says, and the reason that these tenets are included is because when you achieve strong, healthy male-female relationships, then she says that these things lead to strength in the Africana community, which is why we're sharing these with you guys.
And unfortunately, we are out of time, but we will get through the rest of these tenets next week, and we're really going to try to get through them. We know we have a lot of things to say about each one of them, but they're all so important. But definitely, please log on with us next with Principal Kafele. He has two amazing guests that will be joining, talking about trauma. So visit his page next and join us next. Also on Sunday, if you would join Josh and Dean on Unlock the Middle, they will be on at 7. So thank you all for joining us, and have a great rest of your weekend. Please don't forget to let us know your interest in the Knowledge Academy for your school or organization. Just fill out the form on our website, and we will see you in just a few minutes on Principal Kafele's page.
All right,
Have a
guys,
great
enjoy the rest of your day.
rest of your weekend. Thank you.